Thank you so much, Linda. That was a good opportunity, and thank you so much to ISP for providing this opportunity to me. So like Linda mentioned that today we would be talking, and this is the topic that I selected for this Technical Tuesday, orchestration for remote access and monitoring of bioprocess unit operations. And we'll be talking about some of the benefits and use cases. So as we all know that bioprocess as a technology, it's traditional as well as it's also changing some of the behaviors in the last 2 years. I have myself been through some of the webinars where there were use cases and there were citations where the entire process and the entire manufacturing was running with 40% on-site people workforce, and they were going over and above the production targets that they had. So the premises are changing, the ways people are interacting, working are changing, but then again, there are some very core traditional aspects which we still hold upon for the bioprocessing technology. So I'll move forward. And today, I'm going to talk about the digital plant maturity model, and then we'll move to choice of automations in biomanufacturing. After that, we'll be talking about a unique orchestration platform and some of the innovations, and then a few use cases and how we can create value out of the orchestration platform, and then of course we'll open up for Q&A. So coming to the digital plant maturity model, looking at the top part of the slide, if you see that we are seeing some very unprecedented market trends, and I think some of these even got more intensified in the last 2 years of COVID. We are seeing a huge demand, and that is also bringing up a lot of market growth. We are also seeing some uncertainty regarding supply chain and things like there are the demand for new molecules, and then of course the new product classes. And then, of course, there is a lot of cost pressure from the biomanufacturers. They want to bring down their cost and then increase their production. So some of the business drivers that we identified are, of course, speed, maintaining the quality, giving more flexibility to the production plants, and then, of course, reduction of the cost. And if I may draw your attention to the bottom of the screen, we are seeing a heavy uptake of digitization and digital technologies into the bioprocess manufacturing plant. So in my role, when I met many bioprocess users and people who are working in the lab day in and day out, I have heard that it's said in biotechnology, and it's said in the bioprocess and the pharma zone that whatever works, don't touch. But I guess that kind of mindset is going away, and a lot of digital enablement is happening. So BPOG, of course, is Bioforums Group, and they have come up with basically 5 different classes of digital plant maturity. One is the pre-digital plant, which is mostly paper-based with manual operations and with isolated unit operations. The next one is the digital silos, which I think many of our biomanufacturers and many of our users are in today. They operate with certain islands of automation. The recipes, they kind of put it on the systems, and then they do some offline analytics. The third one and the fourth one are the connected plant and the predictive plant, where the systems that they are having in the manufacturing are vertically integrated systems, some automated data analytics, some process modeling around them, around the data that is generated. And the final one, which is as proposed by BPOG, is a fully digital adaptive, which is more predictive analytics, plug and play in terms of automation. So the way I look at this is, the market is moving towards from left to right, as you see on the slide, and our users and the various biomanufacturers are at different stages of the digital maturity. So given the market trends and the business drivers, which is basically the need, and then giving the frame of the DPMM level 1 to level 5, what we are doing, and this is again an initiative from us. So we are coming up with three broad areas. One is the digital technologies and the data management segment. The other one is the process analytical technologies. And the third is improving the process technology. So that's basically where we are focusing, so that the need, the demand, and the framework that sees the light of the day. So there is a culmination of the asks and with the solution that we are providing. So with that, we are moving towards more process intensification and towards connected plant, continuous manufacturing, and autonomous manufacturing. Again, we cannot do this alone, right? We have to partner with different organizations, try to understand what their needs are, and then based upon what we learn, we are coming up with different solutions. So I won't repeat what I mentioned about the digital plant maturity model, but then the key takeaway from what we are doing and the framework that BPOG has given to us is to collect data from different systems to a central historian, and then contextualize some of the metadata, and then have the useful information in place, and then ask some of the questions, and then have the answers for these questions, that what happened during my bioprocess, and then if there is one of the outlier data that we get during the bioprocess, it's very, very important to understand that where did it happen, and I think more importantly, why did it happen, so that the next time we run a batch, it doesn't happen, right? So that being said, I think gone are those days when each and every operation or each and every move is written down in a piece of paper, and then there are heaps of paper which get stacked up, and then when there is an internal or an external audit, we kind of go back to those papers and see those files, and then bring up those files to the auditors. We are in a world where, of course, there are self-driven cars, but then we are not yet there. But we are definitely taking some concerted efforts so that we can pioneer on the digitization of our biomanufacturers. So this comes up with this. I would like to come up with the first poll question, just to understand that who we are and where are we coming from. So the question is, where are you or your organization in the digital plant maturity model? And the choices are level 1, which is a pre-digital plant. Level 2 is the digital silos. Level 3 is the connected plant. Level 4, predictive plant. And level 5, fully digital adaptive plant. So please key in your answers, and we will give you about, I guess, 15 to 20 seconds, and then we'll move forward. And just to give a little brief about the initiative of DPMM, or Digital Plant Maturity Model. So this has essentially been driven by the organization Bioforum group. And they are not doing this, all alone. They are also partnering with different organizations. And then they are coming up with some of the structures Hey, hi. So good. So we have about 29% of the respondents. They're in pre-digital, and then more than 40% digital silos, and then 30% connected plant. So great. I think we have a good mix of attendees here. So I would like to thank you for taking your time and putting your options and putting your choices here. And I'm pretty sure that by the end of the session, we would learn something, and we can keep the conversation going, that how would this impact your manufacturing plant, and how would this impact your operations in the manufacturing plant in future. So thank you for your response. So the next section that I have is what are the different digitization choice that would help in your manufacturing with respect to automation. So when I think of the choices for automation and the digital platform, so this is where I wanted to bring up some key considerations when you are trying to adopt from, maybe a level 1 to a level 5. So one thing before I go to the content of the slide, one thing that I would want to bring up today is I personally, and then, we as an organization, we have seen some examples where, there are organizations who are at a level 1 and they directly want to jump to level 4 and level 5. Well, of course, there is always a trade-off between the risk and the rewards, but we have seen that most of, these kind of projects, they don't bring a very tangible benefit at the end of the implementation of digitization. It's always good to go from, slow but steady steps from level 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, something like that. So basically, if you're thinking of a digital and automation platform, digitizing the manufacturing plant that you have, um, I think these are the 5 steps, to plan, to prepare, to execute, to test, and then, deploy or release the batches that you have. So in terms of the early stages of this, the planning stage, these are more, operator intensive steps where, someone has to sit and think and plan, and then they have to, take some of the digitization choices. The last part, if you look at the release part, so here we already have run the entire line. We have already run the entire batch, and we have gone through the plan, prepare, execute, test, and the release steps. So here we have a lot of data with us, and this is something that I feel is very, very powerful, so that when we look at the data for all the 5 steps, so we can also sit and think and analyze and do better when we are preparing for the next batch or the next run. So the digital and the automation platform, they of course are encompassing the entire the entire plan of operation. But then we can also better some of these steps by enabling some of the digital choices. And with that, we can, of course, reduce cost, operational cost. We can reduce the time to market, and then we can adhere to the quality and the compliance, which is essential and which is, I guess, unquestionable for the biomanufacturers. So in terms of the choices that one needs to make while adapting some of the automation platforms would be to look at some of the products or look at some of the solutions which is purpose built for bioprocessing. And again, automation is a very, very huge subject where someone can think as workforce management to be automation. Someone can think that I press a button and the machine starts. Even that is automation. But then again, the word automation is used and abused in a lot of different ways. But then the choice of automation, the capabilities that we are thinking about automation, if that is bioprocess oriented, I think that's where it makes a difference versus any of the traditional automations. The customized solutions, which are very widely available, that limits a lot of flexibility versus some of the out-of-the-box configurable flexible solution, and if I may say, an agnostic solution. And this is again a direction that the Bioforums group, the BPOC group, they are preaching, and they are coming up with suggestions to have much more open platforms so that the systems can talk to each other, and they can also get connected easily, more like a plug and play approach. The current business, address the current business needs, and at the same time be future ready, enabling bioprocessing 4.0. I think we are well aware of the industrial evolution, I would say, where it went from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4. And now, of course, bioprocessing and this entire pharma and the biopharma market, that's of course, that's kind of catching up. The last but not the least is how do we manage the project risks? Looking at the total cost of ownership, looking at the return of investment, some of the timelines, and the user adoption curve. And I think I mentioned earlier that we often become very excited to jump from say a level 1 to say a level 4 or a level 5. But then are we able to visualize the risks that's going to come up if the project fails, or if the project doesn't meet the timelines that we are expecting? So I think some of those discussions, some of those assessments, some of those capabilities needs to be defined while coming up with a digitization of any biomanufacturing plant. Well, I'll go a little fast from here. So basically, if you see to the left side of the screen, you see the automation pyramid. Typically, the first one, which I think we all have come across, is the standard industry offerings, which would be more of the sensors and the actuators and the hardwares. And the next would be some of the local controls, and the third would be some of the supervisory controls, and ultimately it would be the the MES kind of capability. And then, of course, these days we are looking a lot in terms of the cloud solutions as well. So some of the things, or some of the points that we definitely need to consider are the complexity of the implementation. Is my plant ready to implement any of these automation choices? What is the time to value ratio? Can I give it 2 years for a perfect deployment, or do I want to bring a return on investment, within 6 months? So I think that's some of the choice. The total cost of ownership versus the value benefits, right? I mean, how much do I spend today? And should I have a staggered spending over next 2 or 3 years? Should I have a few milestones with which I can achieve where I want to go in the next 2 or 3 years? Risk mitigation, and then future readiness. I mean, in terms of future readiness, one of the things that I would want to mention is thinking about the expansion plans that my plant would have, right? Today, I'm operating with, say, 20 systems or, say, 50 systems. Tomorrow, my plant may just double the capacity. They can expand to, say, a 70 or 100 systems. Are we doing the right, or are we taking the right choices, the right digitization choices today, so that when we expand tomorrow or in future, my solution or my automation is going to bring all those systems into the solution space, and I will be able to freely operate. I think some of those are some of the choices that we have to take. Some of the critical aspects in biomanufacturing facility, one is delivering performance, and then some of the automation choices that you take that certainly should be fast and easy to deploy. and then scalability is also something that's key. And these are some of the aspects that we have learned and we have heard from many of the biomanufacturers across the globe. So with that, I would want to come to the second poll question that I have. And if I may read out, what are the critical challenges in digitization of your manufacturing facility? Is it in terms of the planning and execution? Is the critical challenge around connectivity across equipments? Are the critical challenges around managing multiple vendors? Or is the challenge, encompasses all of the above? And the final one that I have is I haven't planned for any digitization in our manufacturing facility. So again, I would give you about 20 seconds to make your choice. Okay, so great. I think the result that we got is around 15% says that their critical challenges are around the connectivity across different equipments. About 8% mentioned managing multiple vendors, and then 77% mentioned that most of the above. In our and thanks, thank you so much for your inputs. From our experience, we have seen that managing multiple vendors is also one of the key challenges that we have heard from the bioprocess users. But then again, there are issues around planning and execution, connectivity across equipments, and like I said, managing vendors. So thank you so much for your inputs and feedback. So we are purpose building a platform, and that's orchestration platform. And then again, if I think about the different stages of a batch execution in a biomanufacturing plant, it goes to plan, prepare, execute, test, and release. So in terms of the planning, there are different ERP tools, or there are a lot of planning tools, and then you also plan your inventory well, because these days there are a lot of challenges around the supply chain. And then comes the prepare, execute, and the test layers. And here are, this is the layer which finds a lot of relevance and a lot of importance in terms of the critical challenges that you just mentioned. I mean, this is the place where you have to manage multiple vendors who are coming up, say, for example, automation solution, a LIMS solution, some of the ERP solutions, some of the analytic solutions. And this is also the layer where you have your entire workflow, right? I mean, from the your batch won't run just by digitization, right? I mean, your batch would run with the bioreactors, with the TFF systems, with your Chrome systems, and then comes up the final purified product. It goes through the fill and finish. So this is where the magic happens, right? When you prepare, when you execute, and then when you do the testing, and then comes up with the batch release. And if you see, this is also where the entire the demand for the entire integration is today, right? I mean, if you think of from the stage one of your batch till the fill and finish, or say the batch release, you would see this entire layer is actually giving you a lot of scope for digital enablement and digitization. So like I said earlier, that there are a lot of automation solutions in the market today, but then the orchestration platform really is purpose built and designed for biomanufacturing. And One should also look at choices which minimizes risks, maximizes value, and to be future ready, and build a process agnostic automation solution. What I mean by that is if you're in upstream, or if you're in downstream, or if you're in packaging, or if you are in the fill and finish, there has to be a platform which talks to each other, right? I mean, we cannot have a single solution just for the upstream and then another just for the downstream, like that. So there has to be a horizontal connectivity across as well. So there are three things which I think is very important for us all. One is to connect, and like I said, it has to be connected through multiple layers. It has to also understand the workflow, right? I mean, it has to understand the way a chromatography works, the way the bioreactor works, and then the integration around it, right? So that's the key that I wanted to highlight. So tomorrow, if you are going for digital enablement, or if you are planning for automating your plant, then think in terms of these directions, that how can I connect and how can I manage my workflow better, so that the operator's jobs becomes easy, and even the plant manager's job becomes easy, and then how you can integrate this entire process surrounding all the other capabilities that you have. So the better approach for bioprocessing is, again, coming up with a very lean and agile digital platform which supports the batch, which supports the batches continuously, which can be interoperable, and then some of the technical choices that you make, that has to be future ready. It has to maintain the standards and the guidelines. And then, of course, the solution has to be flexible, modular, with a lot of ease of use, and then extendable. By extendable, I mean that if you are operating at 5 or 10 systems, or a smaller plant, tomorrow when you become big, so that it can be extended. So if I have to give you a little glimpse of the orchestration platform, that certainly connects to multiple unit operations, and then there are various modules that you can think of on top of the platform. And this is around the platform, of course, is around a centralized monitoring and visualization of all the connected systems, and then it brings a lot of efficiency into your operations. You can think of multi-site monitoring. What we learned is there are different rooms, there are different clean rooms, if I may say, where your upstream systems are there and your downstream systems are there. And then often the operator or the plant head would want to monitor all the systems from one remote location. Effective data management, because this is something which is key if, as and when the auditors come, so that you can collect all the data from a central historian, and then, as and when needed, you can give the reports, and if there are some questions, you can give those reports as well related to the batch. The connectivity ecosystem, I think this is also something that we are putting our efforts towards, so that we can start small, connecting a few systems, and then with some of the industry standard protocols, we should be able to connect many more systems. And last but not the least, the platform should be easy to use, and then easy to implement and validate, right? I think validation is also one of the key things which often takes a lot of time, as well as a lot of efforts, and of course also draws in a lot of cost, right? So an automation choice which is easy to validate the connected systems and the choice of the platform, I think that's where the key thing is. So I would just leave with this message that take the first step and the right step to advance your plan from the islands of automation to platform that can address the current business challenges, and it can lay a very strong foundation towards your vision of digitization and automation journey. So with that, I have a few use cases, and then we can open up for question and answer. So this is how one can also think of process monitoring, where there can be multiple systems or skids or unit ops that can be at different part of the globe, and then at a central location you can bring everything, every connected system into a single dashboard, so that you can monitor and visualize those bioprocess runs. Process monitoring, you can if there is an alarm or if there is some trends, if there is a illusion peak that is coming up, one should be able to monitor all of that from a remote location. You don't essentially have to go inside the plant, and what we learn from many of our users is it takes quite a bit of time to kind of gown up, gown down, and then move to the manufacturing plant. But then again, if you are in a place where you have the full visibility of all the connected systems, that's what works for them. Recipe management, I think this is one key capability that many of the biomanufacturing users they want, so that you can build the recipe, not just going to the system, but then from your office area. All that you need to have is a secured connection. So through that, you can dispatch the recipe on the skid, and the operator walks into the clean room to kind of start the recipe. Managing the entire recipe, I think this is also important, where you can have the control of who is developing a recipe, and then is it the right recipe, to get the recipe approved, and then dispatch the recipe onto the biomanufacturer or the operating skid. Reporting, I think this is of paramount importance, where you can create a template of a report, and then with all the connected skids or with all the connected systems, you can build the entire reporting into one report. And this is something that I guess lays the foundation of automation, or lays the foundation of horizontal connectivity. If you have, say, 10 systems, and going back to the earlier poll question, if you have these 10 systems from 10 different companies, so then what happens is each and every equipment manufacturer has their own reporting template, right? I mean, they have their own way to report. So becomes very difficult. Say, for example, if you have a Chrome system from 3 different vendors, so they would have, each of them would have 3 different formats for the report to be generated. So the difficulty that happens is to kind of match that. So here, if from the reporting standpoint, if you think of one agnostic platform which can draw in the data from multiple systems, from multiple vendors, and then put it in one place, I think that's what is powerful. So that tomorrow, if there is an audit that's happening, you can just pull up that single report file, and then place it in front of auditors, rather than kind of scouting which system gave what results. User management is also of something which is of very important thing, where there are one of the things that we identified, and one of the use case that we were working on is what happens if I want to control on the operators who uses which kind of system. So that given that scenario, it's important that an administrator or the plant manager has the power to assign or unassign users across their team, so that they can operate the different unit ops. So with that, this is my last section, and after this we'll open up for the Q&A. If you think of digitization of your biomanufacturer plant, Of course, think big, but then try to think in layers and try to take one step at a time. I think BPOC has given us a very, very interesting and a very strong guidance in terms of our present state, where we are, and then where we want to go, and then how we can build up the automation and the digitization step by step. Um, think of an out-of-box solution. Think of how the batch execution becomes much more effective. Think of the feedback controls, and think of the predictive modeling and simulation. And with all of that, one can achieve the concept of the factory of the future, where you can consolidate and integrate all the systems from different vendors, the different users, and the different inventory into one central location. The data that gets generated from the platform, of course, has to adhere to all the compliance regulatory guidance. And then with that being the skeleton, or with that being the feeding mechanism for the entire reporting structure and the analytics. Think of process automation. Think from the bioprocessing side. Let's not think about any kind of automation, but then think of bioprocess specific automations, and um, how we can bring more efficiencies, how we can bring a feedback control, and then the modeling simulation. So uh, that's I think so with that, I guess when you take some of the steps towards digitization and towards automation, given the plan, prepare, execute, test, and release these cycles, I think a lot of this, execute and test cycles gets shortened, so that the release happens faster. And what I mean by shortening the time is essentially around the data analysis, the report, the reviews, and the approval. And then let me read this out for you, that managing non-value, alarm status, monitoring, manual data capture, review, approval, that would actually compress the batch release cycle time substantially. So this is where our focus should be. Our efforts are towards that direction. And with that, I would again want to cite what we started in the beginning, that the market and the users, they're expecting a lot of flexibility, increased speed, reduced cost, and adherence of quality. The platform that we have, we are coming up with certain strategies where it would be a cost-effective solution, very easy to deploy, faster deployment, and then we want to embed the bioprocess specific automation solutions in your manufacturing facility. At the same time, we would also want to optimize our users' capex investments, so that their total cost of ownership is low in the beginning, and then as and when they need, they can also opt for additional modules, and that would help them when they want to automate more, or when they want to bring more capabilities into their bioprocessing environment. So with that, our solution and our promise is to go for a lesser manual intervention, better compliance, and the reliable automation solutions. Um, so these are the different technologies and the different strategies which the biomanufacturers can think of uh, as an effort and as an evolutionary effort towards the facility of the future. You can think of the different process technologies, the different digital technologies, and the different PAT, or the process analytical technologies. And again, there are the other the other subparts of it, which can be interoperability and orchestration, flexible control and automation strategies, to have data-driven decision, and then of course end-to-end data collection, closed loop process control. So all of these actually If you think on all of these directions, I think that's where the digitization or the automation structure of your plant would move towards the facility of the future. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time. I'm very, very happy for this opportunity, and then we can open up for some question and answers. Over to you, Christina and Linda.
Thank you very much, Aniruddha, for that presentation. That's very enlightening and covers a very, very big area. I'd like to open up the floor for questions, comments, suggestions. If you can either unmute yourself and ask the question directly, or you could feel free to post it in the chat. We've got a nice group of people who hopefully will have lots of queries for you. So Amit asks, hello, Aniruddha, nice concept, few questions. How do you see managing data integration from different packages, e.g. wave bioreactors from vendor 1, single-use bioreactors from vendor 2, and purification skids from Merck? Each vendor has his own orchestration layer offering. How do you see multiple vendors supporting data integration, brackets communication, to Bio4C platform? How open would vendors be to allow such integration?
Yeah, I think that's a very relevant and something which we definitely consider. So thanks for the question, Amit. And again, I don't want to take names of any vendors here, and I would not want to get into the specifics and the brand names of the vendors. But if I understand your question is that different vendors would have different protocols, and then how open would they be to kind of pass on their data, right? So if that's what I can take from your question, the quick answer is it's not that difficult, but it's also not very easy as well. So the way the entire data integration happens is through the different protocols, right? I think one of the very popular protocols are the OPC protocols, right? And if you see that many of this data comes through the OPC channel. So one approach of bringing data from different vendors into one central historian would be through protocol-based approach. I mean, either you go with the Ethernet IP, that kind of a connection, or you go through the OPC route. The other is also, with some of the local integrators, if you can just, open that tunnel and then the data flows in. But the big question and the big, I would say the challenge in this is which tags to pick, which data would, bring a more meaningful data when I have, a bioreactor data and a chrome data and say a filtration data all in one place. What are the different tags and what are the, what are the sensors that we need to open up and bring those into the central historian? I think this is where I was trying to stress upon the fact that when you are thinking of automation, it's definitely not a one size fits all, that kind of a solution, right? So go for someone who understands bioprocess, right? So go for someone who understands the criticalities or the CTQs of your run, right? So from the bioreactor side, what are the different tags to open up? From the Chrome side, what are the different tags to open up? I think that makes a more cohesive solution. But then finally, if I look at the instrument layer, that comes into the central historian. And then again, I don't want to take names, but there are different vendors for central historian. And then from the central historian, how do we translate those, engineering units or those small data into some of the meaningful run results to the users. I mean, if I'm the user, if I'm seeing a chromatography run, a peak going up and down, I don't want to be bothered about where that data is coming from. I just want to see, a nice, good graph with the values so that I can derive some conclusion and I can make my next run better. But thanks for the question, Amit.
Yeah. Thanks, Anirudh. I mean, sometimes if you're talking about bioprocessing, there are times where data is required from your lab instruments. Sometimes data, like if there's a cell counter which is just present in the manufacturing area, there would be a quick typing in of a result into the system. So will Bio4C platform allow manual data entries or even data to be picked up from lab instruments? So is that the connectivity you're forcing as well? And ultimately, all this data would go into to predict the yield or to derive some insight out of that information, right? So is Bio4C open to all these connectivities as well?
Yeah.
Manual data
So
entry, for example.
yeah. So thanks, Amit, for that. So again, I'm not here to talk about the product. I'm here to talk about the approach. So I would just answer by saying that the approach should be an open connectivity. I think that's how
Correct.
I would answer. But I would not really talk about the product today.
Okay, perfectly fine. I mean, we can take
Thanks,
it
Amit.
offline. Yeah, thanks. Great. Thanks for the answers.
Thanks for your restraint, Aniruddha. And Amit, thank you very much for a great question. Does anyone else have a question that they'd like to ask directly? This is your opportunity to ask an expert. Anything you like? Or does anyone have any comments or disagree with what's been presented? This can be a discussion. It's not a one-way street.
Yeah, exactly. We can just open up and we can talk about what are the approaches that you are taking, right? I mean, when we looked at some of the poll questions, I guess none of us are in the pre-digital plant, right? I think there's some sort of digital engagement and the capabilities that we have had in this group. So what has been your challenge, or how you are enabling digitization in your plant? Even I'm curious to know if someone of you can share.
Would anyone like to share their experience?
So Aniruddha, I can share something. Is it okay?
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So I'm also from a vendor company. I'm not a life science. I don't work for life science manufacturing. I was doing that when I joined. I'm currently as part of Honeywell. I'm working in Honeywell. So as we talked with many clients, many bioprocessing clients, maybe in India or maybe in APAC, the basic question or the basic problem they have is they have all these digital silos, but they don't have a network wherein all this data is even centrally connected. They don't have even the basic infrastructure. So right now, for example, they may have single-use bioreactor. A single-use bioreactor may have its own server, own HMIs, but that's it. And there's nothing over and above that. And then they may have purification skid downstreams. They have centrifuges, which are having their own PLC, but that's it. There's nothing over and above that. So what we see initially is even to go take that first step from pre-digital plant to, or not pre-digital, from level 2, which is digital silos, to go to level 3. You need the basic IT or the basic OT level infrastructure to be in place to have that connectivity, right? So that is what is a major problem I see. And basically these problems I don't see over here in companies like the tier 1 companies which are present in Singapore, but more or less all the companies present in the Asia broader APAC region and back in India as well. I see that as a major issue. So
Yeah.
that's my experience. I'm just sharing it out loud,
Yeah.
that this is the experience what I see, on the actual practical things happening on the shop floor.
Yeah. So that's where you and I that's what you and I have to drive, right?
Exactly. So we start with basic networking. So that is where we start from.
Right. No. Again, I think while we gathered our voice of customers and some of the preliminary surveys, what we also gathered is, lot of disconnects happen when the bioprocess engineers talk to the typical automation vendors, right? I think that's where the disconnect happens. So there has to be a staged approach where people can understand each other and then try to understand where the critical to quality aspects happen, and then translate that to some of the features that the IT and the infrastructure and like I mentioned in my presentation, that that some of the risks that we foresee are if we are at level 2 and then if we want to jump to level 5, I think that's very risky, right? That's absolutely a risky state of affair. So the small steps and then a well planned digitization approach is what I wanted to convey and what I wanted to bring up today.
Agreed. Yeah, you're right.
Thank you for that. We've got a question from Wei Kwang, which is, what's the challenge in connecting bioreactor bulk harvest process with protein A capture step?
Okay. So again, it's so again, and again, I'm kind of fumbling a little bit because I don't want to get into product specific details. But then what I would say is the bioreactors of course comes from different vendors, right? We need to understand that what is the protocol with which they can pass on the data to the upward layer or the historian layer, and some of the protocols I mentioned earlier. And then the protein A essentially would be a chrome step, right? So what are the criticalities for that chromatography? Do you want to capture only the UV or the pH as well as the conductivity, the flow rate, some of those parameters that goes upwards. And then the central historian that would bring both the systems data in one platform, and then the report out that can happen can of course you cannot combine a bioreactor report with a chrome report, but then in one PDF or in one file, if you have that as a part of my for my batch A, this was my first step and this was my second step. I think that can be one small step where you are bringing automation or digitization into your facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the question.
Does that answer the question for you?
Yes. Have a better understandings. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question? I think we've got time for one more. This is your golden opportunity before we sign off for the evening and before Aniruddha continues on with his work day, I think. You're in India, right?
Oh,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so it's still your afternoon.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So does anyone have a question, comment, suggestion?
Yeah. And again, I think primarily I am a reflective thinker personally. So many of my questions arises after the presenter moves to the next slide or maybe couple of slides. So if you are a reflective thinker like me, here's my mail ID. You can always write to me and we can get connected. But this was a good opportunity, and thank you so much, ISPE and Linda, Christiana, and Apple for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. And also to echo Aniruddha's thoughts, please do send us any questions that you might have, but were perhaps shy to share. But do let us know and we will pass them on so that they can answer them for you specifically with regards to your own situation. And we already have the contact details for you to follow up if you need. The presentation will be has been recorded and the slides will be sent to everyone that registered. So please do feel free to go through them and again, ask any questions that you might have. For us, we would very much appreciate your feedback if you could click on the link that we have provided so that we can improve future sessions. But we'd like to thank everybody for joining us this afternoon and to welcome you to our next Technical Tuesday, which we have next week, in fact. So we're looking forward to that. You sign up from our website or from our newsletter or emails that you've been receiving. With that, I'd like to thank Aniruddha again for all your time and for sharing with us, and also Apple for helping us to arrange this session. Without further ado, I'd like to wish everyone a lovely afternoon, evening, and thanks for joining.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.